We begin this hour with a live look at the White House as Republicans call for a briefing on the cocaine discovered in the West Wing.
This as the Secret Service is continuing an investigation to figure out who brought apparently the cocaine into the West Wing at about discovered 6 p.m. Sunday night.
All right, we have a new theme in the press room. Mark Meredith joins us live from the White House with the details. Mark, is anyone being forthcoming?
Brian, Kaylee, and Steve, if they are, it's happening behind the scenes because it's the Secret Service, not the White House, that's handling the investigation. In fact, so many of the questions yesterday the White House punted on, they simply said it was the Secret Service that was investigating. We even know that the agency, though, is still trying to get to the bottom of this and now doing fingerprinting and DNA testing to try to get some answers. The drugs were discovered in the West Wing on Sunday in what's being described as a heavily traveled area of the West Wing. It was found in a phone cubby where people leave their personal belongings, if you're leaving a phone, purse, stuff like that, if you're about to go on a tour. Reporters, we tried to get President Biden to weigh in on all of this yesterday when he was hosting the Prime Minister of Sweden, but he chose not to take questions. Just smiles. There are new reports, though, that the House Oversight Committee is not smiling and requesting a briefing from the Secret Service. Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton, he's also demanding answers directly from the Secret Service. He sent a letter yesterday asking 6 questions and wrote, if the White House complex is not secure, Congress needs to know the details as well as your plan to correct any security flaws. It's important to remember President Biden nor his family were in the White House when the drugs were found, but the incident is sparking fresh questions about what the administration is going to do about this, plus the war on drugs and the president's thought on the situation. He's long spoken out against drugs, including crack cocaine. Take a listen to what he had to say all the way back in 1991.
If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice.
The White House didn't engage in a lot of hypotheticals about what would happen to the person if they were a staffer. Would people be drug tested? And said they simply were going to wait to see what the Secret Service was going to talk about. But this is also becoming a political issue. I've heard from a number of the Republican presidential candidates that have been talking about this. We'll see if President Biden weighs in any further when he gets ready to head to South Carolina a few hours from now. Kaylee, Brian, and Steve.
Hey, Mark, I know the usher's office has a list of VIPs who visit the White House because it's like, hey, look who's here. But they do not register necessarily VIPs and other people into the, what's that White House visitors log computer system called, Wave?
Waves is the security system that you basically have to submit your credential, your social security, stuff like that to get seen. There are visitor logs that are published by this administration, which is a departure from what we've seen in the last few years. There is a visitor log that comes out, I think quarterly, that gives us an idea of who's been coming in and out. But whether or not we'd really be able to work backwards to figure anything out on this date, I don't think that would be likely. But Secret Service says they're going through those visitor logs, going through the cameras, trying to figure out exactly what's going to be happening.
Mark, you're standing on Pebble Beach. That's where all of the outlets have their cameras. Often when I'd walk in that West Exec tent just over your left shoulder, there'd be a camera from you guys pointing right at me. I knew you knew when I was coming in and out. Was there a camera?
Hey, Kaylee, can we get a comment on this?
Exactly.
The paparazzi was after you, Kaylee.
Yes.
I mean, I remember when you come out here to do interviews, and anybody in the Trump years, it was chaos because we'd all crowd and rush you guys. Yes, that is we call it a fence camera that is set up that would capture if cabinet secretaries were coming into the West Wing. I don't believe on a Sunday evening that those cameras would be there, only because, again, the president wasn't even here. I don't know for a fact that the cameras were operating on that Sunday evening, but I'd be surprised if those shots were up. This was also in the evening hours. I want to say it was around 6:37-ish. So usually if they'd already called a lid, I can't imagine that those cameras would be
Mark,
up.
do you think the president's going to, when he goes to Camp David, put a Ring doorbell on so he can still monitor what's happening in the White House?
I think what's going to be really interesting to see is whether or not there is more severe fallout from this, because obviously there's so much talk about it now, but there was even the speculation, oh, will this just be kind of, swept aside? Will we ever hear any more about it? But what Senator Cotton mentioned is he wants to know how often this has happened before. Have there been other instances maybe we just didn't know, maybe because there wasn't a hazmat evacuation? As I talked about in the last hour, when you come through the security gates, they don't pull out everything in your bag. I mean, it's better than going through an airport. You can bring liquids through as opposed to having to take everything out. So there are questions about whether or not stuff has been discovered before. And I know, Steve, I knew you asked me this yesterday about whether or not drugs had ever been found in the White House before. I can't speak to cocaine, but Snoop Dogg once bragged that he smoked marijuana during, I believe, the Obama administration here in the White House.
Willie Nelson, too, on the roof.
Willie
Nelson under the
4th of
Carter
July
presidency.
on the roof.
Doesn't sound like something that Snoop Dogg would do.
No.
Shocked, yeah. As Shaggy says, it wasn't me. I think that's the only thing we can say about this. It was just such a wild story.
And just exit question, because as soon as people heard, oh, cocaine at the White House, everybody starts thinking about Hunter, etc. He doesn't go through that door. Family members don't go through that door. Visitors don't go through that door. Visitors for the family go through the East Wing, right?
Maybe if he wanted to hide cocaine, he would.
The visitors that would be going to go see the mansion, you're right, they would go through the East Wing. Even the tourists that go through the mansion, that's usually where they start from there. The first family, no, they don't go through this door. I mean, when we saw the president with his son, they usually get off Marine One together and they go through right there through, I believe that's the diplomatic room that they go right through. So obviously there will be a lot of focus about whether or not Secret Service has anything new to report. I'll check it with them later this morning, guys, and see if I can get you some answers.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. All right, Mark, we wore you out. Thank you.
Yeah.
7 minutes after the hour. Here's what the candidates said about the cocaine find. Watch.
The Biden administration's been blowing it on a lot of fronts, but I guess it's a little bit more literal than even I had thought. I can tell you in Florida, my wife and I, we have a 6'5" and a 3-year-old running around the governor's mansion. So that's not something that we see. We do have to occasionally get slime out of the carpet and get marker off the wallpaper, but that's the extent of our adventures at the governor's mansion.
All joking aside, if you really get to the seriousness of this, it's just one more yet another example of two standards of law in this country. One, if you're part of the privileged class. One, if you're part of many people across this country, which many Democrats have railed against, who are locked up for possession of cocaine.
Yeah.
Now it shows up in the White House, and it's a laughing matter.
Well,
so,
Vivek,
in a certain sense, it's just evidence of a deeper problem.
We ought to know in real time who brought and left cocaine on a table in the residence in the White House, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, that was one of the early stories that was found in a different room in the library. It was actually found in one of the cubbies. Daniel Lippman at Politico says a close source to the investigation says it's unlikely to ever determine who brought it in because it's so heavily trafficked. They said, the quote is, even if there were cameras around, unless you were waving it around, it may not have been caught on cameras. It's a bit of a thoroughfare because people walk by all the time.
Why are we learning more from Daniel Lippman at Politico than the White House press secretary? And why do the 2024 contenders on the Republican side sound tougher on this than President Biden? Because this is serious. People don't know this, but the president of the United States walks through that entrance. Many times I saw President Trump walk in and out going to his motorcade. So think about the president of the United States, inches from a cocaine powder that we didn't know at the time, whether it could have been anthrax. But where's Biden being tough on this? Where's the press secretary with answers? I would have gone to Secret Service saying, I'm not walking to that podium until you give me a little more than Daniel Lippman at Politico.
Well, they don't want to comment on it because it's embarrassing. It reminds people of the Hunter deal. And, we were talking about this yesterday. On July 26th, that federal judge up in Delaware is going to decide whether or not to accept the Hunter Biden deal, where he's going to plead guilty to a couple of tax charges. But then the gun charge is going to go away if he can keep clean for the next, I think, year or two. The question is then you think, keep clean, does that mean about breaking crimes or does that mean about drugs? And then you wonder, is he being drug tested right now?
It should be.
It appears he lives at the White House. To your point, there are a million questions, and we see the White House people asking the questions, the press, but no answers.
We don't know if there's fentanyl in that cocaine, too. That's the problem. You saw that Robert De Niro's grandson just died. Fentanyl was in whatever substance he bought.
At the White House? Fentanyl at the White House?
No, he was saying with unknown powder that you don't know what's in it.
They don't know what's in it. He thought he was buying one drug. Fentanyl was in it. Do we know that fentanyl's in this cocaine?
It's scary. I mean, to the point of Weijia Zhang. Weijia Zhang at CBS said this could have been a non-magnetic powder that could have made it through anthrax. This is a huge national security threat in the press. Well, they're just laughing it off, but what would you expect?
Absolutely. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.